Welcome to episode 80 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. This week we're talking about Howl's Moving Castle, one of our favorite Miyazaki flicks. Please enjoy this episode, our second episode in anime.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Robbie.
And this week we are discussing another anime movie because it's still May and the gimmick is still lasting for one more episode.
Yep.
Until we inevitably run into June or we end up having one more May episode that's not anime themed. Who knows? It's anyone's guess at this point, so...
Flip a coin. We'll figure it out.
Naturally. But so this week we decided to do a Studio Ghibli movie. One that's kind of like, I guess it's sort of divisive within like the Studio Ghibli fandom or whatever you want to call it. Apparently. I mean, I understand why. Like, I've heard some of the criticisms for it, but we'll address that later. So this week we are talking about Howl's Moving Castle, which was originally released in, I believe, 2004, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's, Robbie, would you like to give them a brief synopsis of the story? Chances are they might have already heard of it or seen the movie, but just as a reminder.
Fan of this podcast, I would be shocked if you haven't seen it or at least
honestly.
have some sense of it.
For as often as we talk about Studio Ghibli, among other things.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Howl's Moving Castle is a movie about a young girl who gets cursed, ends up living with a wizard, falls in love with a wizard, and then breaks the curse that both she and the wizard are living through.
It's your standard girl meets wizard story, I suppose.
Yeah, it is super fun, and also in some ways pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So
it's not like Grave of the Fireflies heavy. I want to make that emphatically clear.
No, but
nothing's that heavy.
It is also like rewatching it again for the first time in a while, and after having read the book, I'm like, wow, this like really makes the war a big thing, which, you know, in 2004 makes sense because...
Yeah, we were in the prime Bush years, which in case you don't remember, there was a relatively controversial period where the U.S. was at war, and this movie was kind of had that inserted for that particular reason.
It's very kind of you to say relatively controversial.
Yeah. I mean, well, like, it's just, it depends on what your affiliation is with politics. Like, you may not care, you know?
Sure.
So.
I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's...
Even remember.
I don't know. But, I mean, it's like, in case you didn't remember, Hayao Miyazaki is an ardent pacifist and conservationist, which is not terribly shocking, but he does incorporate that into a lot of his films. So.
Oh, yes. So this is an example of that. So the movie is about, I mean, the main character is a young woman named Sophie who gets cursed to being old, essentially. Yeah,
she's basically... Sophie's character starts off being 18, like she works in this hat shop owned by her family, and at one point there's this character named the Witch of the Waste, who's this kind of notorious sorceress that operates throughout the kingdoms surrounding where Sophie lives. And basically when Sophie, like, justifiably tells her to, you know, get out of the store when she's disrespectful to her and everything, even though Sophie doesn't realize who she is at the time.
Yeah.
Then she's cursed to become a 90-year-old woman. But, like, honestly, the witch was just being super rude.
Okay, so here's the thing, which I do sort of love about the fucking witch.
Oh, gosh, she's great.
In both the novel that this is based on and in the movie, she is just the pettiest bitch alive. Mm-hmm. Because in the book, she curses Sophie for unknowingly speaking to Howl. Not flirting, not like nothing. Just like, I happened to be walking around, talked to him, didn't know it was him, and now you're mad at me.
It kind of reminds me of if you've ever seen like those Reddit threads of like, she's almost like a nice guy, I guess, you know, in that like she has this bizarre amount of possessiveness towards Hal, though she has essentially no affiliation towards him whatsoever. But it's just kind of like she's got like this if I can't have him, no one can sort of thing. So she just fucks around with anyone that tries to interfere with her plans for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's kind of like a remnant of an element of the book that's like tricky, that doesn't make it in quite. in the book, Howl he's still a wizard, but he is like an utter cad. Like, he leaves the house not to like go participate in the war or like, I don't even know. It's almost like counterterrorism type stuff that he's doing.
He just gallivants about town, pretty much, like trying to woo like all the girls in the surrounding area.
That's literally
like, I mean,
all
he's literally just going out there as like a pickup artist. It's awful.
It's awful, but it's also like so funny because he's just like
super funny. all
the ridiculous elements of Howl are just like dialed up to 13 in the book.
Yeah, because like when you actually. Yeah, like, so when you actually see him in the movie itself, it's like, yeah, he does come across as, like, kind of vain and sort of, silly and superficial and everything. But there fundamentally is, like, a fairly decent person in there. Like, he seems like he wants to genuinely help, and that he obviously has a very anti-war approach to things, which I thought was a little shoehorned in, I'll be honest. But, like, it was kind of inevitable, I guess.
Yeah, well, so those elements exist in the book, but I think they're not in the middle of war. They're like on the cusp.
Yeah, well, I don't think that the war, if it's involved in the book at all, is not nearly as important as it is in the movie. Because like the war is like very central to like most of the storytelling progressing in the actual movie.
So in the book, it's more like they're on the verge of war, and the things that they do prevent it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the sort of bigger changes in terms of like elements that are going on. But it's still like, I still really enjoy the movie. I recently read the book as well, so.
Yeah, I remember reading it I remember reading it back in like senior year of high school, which would have been like it would have been like a few years after the fact. I'm sure I rented it from somewhere, and then I was just like, oh, I should read the book. I want to see what the differences are. And like I still remember liking it because Dianne Wynne Jones is a very good writer, but
she is.
But yeah, it was definitely kind of different because like I was trying to imagine the same things coming from the characters. I'm like, well, I don't know. I think maybe it would have translated better for me if I didn't watch the English dub first, because the dub is good. But I will say one thing, and this is just very kind of particular for me. I don't know if this was a deal breaker for you, but I don't understand why they cast Billy Crystal among a bunch of basically English actors. So, and because like we'll say this. Howl is played by Christian Bale, who's doing like kind of a more subdued version of his own British accent, because if you want to hear his actual accent in its full form, look up Christian Bale singing the Powerpuff Girls theme song on YouTube. It's fantastic. Because he started he said it was a song that got stuck in his head because his daughter would watch the show a lot, and he's just like fighting crime, trying to save the world. Like it's both adorable and very strange.
I constantly forget that he is British because I don't even detect his accent in this movie.
No, I know, because like they always just ask him to kind of subdue it, or like he's usually cast in American roles. Yeah, he's he's asked to like not have his accent generally,
which is kind of interesting because, and this is one of the
shame.
Huh?
I think it's a bit of a shame personally.
But it's interesting for Howl's Moving Castle just because Howl, the character in the book, there's this element that is completely absent from the movie, which I'm happy doesn't exist, which is that the world of the book is like a separate world from our own, and Howl and Solomon, who I think is Sullivan in the book, I can't remember, are both from actual real world Wales.
Yeah, like, that would have been a weird thing to do. As though, like,
Howl
if you want to be a wizard, you have to be from Wales in the UK.
Yeah, it was super strange. I don't quite follow what that was sort of doing. But there's apparently, like, she wrote 2 sequels to Howl's Moving Castle, which I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah.
Which apparently, like, expand upon and, like, explain some things. Like, one of the things that is not super explicitly talked about in the movie is the nature, I mean, and for good reason, right? But, like, the nature of Sophie's curse and the fact that it actually, like, doesn't last throughout the whole movie.
No, like, if anything, or this is what I gleaned from it at least, is that I think it's kind of affected by her emotional state, because like and here's another thing that I noticed upon rewatching this, it really is very striking how much like Sophie just kind of talks herself down, which really made me sad because like I didn't realize it at the time, but it was just like, well, yeah, I mean, she's just being modest, she's just being humble. Like, no, I mean, like, she's actively kind of disparaging herself.
No,
and I guess that was a much bigger proponent in the book itself, because like the Sophie in the book is more kind of motivated by just kind of being disgruntled and just kind of angry because she resents being the oldest, because in the book, being the oldest of 3 children basically means that you're destined to do nothing. Like, nothing good, pretty much.
So, well, and also, one thing that is not touched upon, right? Well, it's alluded to, it's sort of like suggested, but it's not really talked about.
Yeah.
Is Sophie has magical powers of her own.
Yeah, in the book she does.
Yeah, well, and I think it's more implied in the movie.
I mean, well, kind of. I don't, or at least we should say that in the book that I think it's something about that she actually can talk to inanimate objects and then kind of will them to do things.
Yeah, she basically has this, like, intense sort of force of will power.
Like extreme empathy going towards inanimate objects to the point that she can influence them to do stuff.
Yeah, but I think she can also, like, influence other things. Like, because one of the jokes they make in the book is they've been trying to help her and the spell's already worn off, but it's almost as though she enjoys being old.
I think she does, because like honestly she kind of runs with it in the movie too. Like it seems as though like it kind of befits her personality a bit more. Because like, well, she is old fashioned compared to Letty, but like Letty is like, she's painted up like a $20 whore in the movie. So
well, and that's like a joke in the book, is that like when she goes to visit Letty, there's like a line of dudes outside like asking to talk to her. And like Marco is substantially older in the book. And
yeah, I think his name is Markle, like Markl.
Oh, he's Marco. He's just Marco in the book.
Is it? I thought it was Michael in the book. Like they give him like an actual name, and he's like 15. But then within the movie itself, he's like this 9-year-old kid, and they call him Markle.
Yeah.
Like, which I thought was very weird. I was just like, why not just call him Michael? Like Sophie and Letty and Howl and Madame Solomon, they all have regular names pretty much. I mean, well, Solomon could have been changed from Sullivan or Sullivan, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anywho, well, so one of the things that read this whole like Sophie magic thing that doesn't really come out in the movie, that's really pretty central in the book to Sophie being so sort of like self-deprecating and like curmudgeonly, is the fact that when she works in the hat shop, she spends pretty much all her time working in the back making hats.
Yeah.
And those hats that she makes are so wildly successful, and her sisters feel that she's being exploited by their mother.
Which is fair, because her mom's just basically going about town, just, being a socialite, essentially.
Yes.
And, like, pretty much, like, she's not really forcing Sophie to work there, but I think it's kind of implicit that there's some sort of, like, Sophie feels guilty if she wouldn't be there.
Yeah, well, especially after her father died.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sophie ends up taking on the responsibility, but it's like, you really probably shouldn't, like... But I think in the book, she actually does stand up to her mother, or at least she tries to. And
yeah, there's a little more. So even though there's more going on with her family in the book, I do like that there's the scene in the movie, sort of much later on, where her mother sees her and she's old, but she still just knows, like, right away, that's Sophie, that's my daughter.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like that, even though that scene is essentially a way to, like, just sort of move the plot forward, essentially, like a trap for Howl, it is, like, very sort of heartwarming to me that she immediately recognizes her daughter, even though...
Yeah. I mean, it was sweet that the mom actually recognized her, but she's clearly just being a plant for Solomon. Where it's obvious that Solomon had, like, contacted her and was keeping her away from her husband or something, and forced her to go there to talk to Sophie because she knew that Sophie would let her in and talk to her about things, and then left, like, a bug basically there to track where they were.
Mm-hmm. And that was enjoyable. One scene that they just couldn't make happen in the movie that I adored in the book is the very final one.
What's that?
So at the very end of the book, you have Sophie's entire family is in Howl's castle, and they're like kind of like arguing and trying to like get Sophie's attention, and Michael in the movie Markle is doing the same thing, and then there's like a third character that's there. And it's very British that you just have, at that moment, Sophie and Howl are just, you know, staring into each other's eyes, and doesn't matter what's going on around them. They're just focused on each other. And it's very British, but also like super sweet.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that scene so much. It was really nice. I literally finished reading the book the day before it was due.
Oh, and you're just like, oh,
this is cute. Yeah.
I should probably rewatch that, I should probably reread that because I really don't recall what happened at the end of the book. Because, like, honestly, the ending at the movie is pretty sweet too. Just, you know, because like there's do we want to get into like spoilers about what happens in the middle?
I mean,
pretty much?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll say this. At least so to contrast that within the movie itself is that Sophie realizes that basically the reason that Calcifer and Howl have a deal is that Calcifer was this demon that flew down from the sky basically during, it looked like some kind of shooting star, like a meteor shower or something. And Calcifer made a deal with Howl and said that, like, look, if you want to be a wizard, like, and this is all like just done through visuals. We can't actually hear them talking, but Howl basically lets Calcifer like take his heart. And then, like, he has to Howl has to pull his own heart out of his body, and then that becomes tied to Calcifer. So hence, he gets his magical powers from him. So, and Sophie realizes that when she's taken into this, like, very cool kind of dream sequence thing with the amazing dog Heen, which both you love and I love.
I love Heen.
He's a great dog.
He's just a good dog, just running around.
Yeah, he does look like he'd have a... if this is any other movie, I would probably call him Murray or Frank or some kind of old man name, because he just looks like a little old man with chicken feet.
He really does. That's actually one thing I wanted to mention, unrelated to the dog, is I love the design of the castle in the movie.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Because it's like this weird, giant steampunk thing with house-like elements sort of like shoved into it. Yeah. And then it's got like these big weird chicken legs. Yeah, and
like a big weird frog mouth that kind of doesn't really do anything. Like it's not. There's exhaust coming from other things. I feel like it was just kind of for aesthetic whimsy.
I think that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was sort of interesting.
I did see a very good cosplay of it too at C2E2 a few years ago. It was so cool. Like someone made like a model and everything of it, and they wore it as a suit. It was awesome.
That's so cool. I also liked when it's falling apart and it's just got 4 legs. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah. That part's great, too. Yeah, I would say that, like, honestly, out of all the performances, I thought that Sophie was very well done. In the English dub, she's done by Emily Mortimer, who, she's got a very sweet voice, like, or when she's, like, a teenager, when she's, like, younger Sophie. And then when she's older Sophie, I think it's Jean Simmons, who I believe used to be a, very popular actress back in like the 50s and 60s. Like I think she was in the movie version of Guys and Dolls.
Yep, you nailed all of that.
Thank you. I remembered it. But I honestly, out of all of them, I really liked Turnip Head. I thought he was so cute.
I love Turnip Head. Turnip Head's so funny. So this is another one that's interesting to compare with the book. In the movie, Turnip Head is like just kind of this goofy, endearing scarecrow with a turnip head. In the book, he like chases them down across the countryside and is terrifying.
Yeah, but like he's also kind of a guardian angel because he does everything to help out. Because like he's just so grateful to be included.
Yeah, whereas in the book he's like a spy for the witch, but also a transmuted person made of parts of other people.
Yeah, that part's super different from the movie. Weird. Because in the movie, it turns out that Turnip Head is just the prince of the neighboring country or whatever, or the kingdom rather, that was turned into the Turnip Head, like just as a way to like keep him away. So like, and it turns out that like by Sophie kissing Turnip Head for saving them from plummeting into this ravine, he becomes the prince. And for some reason, and I don't understand why, pretty much every guy in this movie has a page boy haircut, which I don't get. but they all have one.
So that bothered me when we're at Solomon's place.
Yeah, because she's got like 5 identical like blonde children as her attendants. It's really weird.
They just look like a bunch of Howl twins, and I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, I was like, is this just her way of like retroactively just controlling tiny versions of Howl? Because like that's another story into itself.
Yeah, that's a super weird thing.
I just thought it was odd because like even Turniphead had it, like Howl had that color, but then eventually his hair goes from being blonde to being like a bluish black color. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was so weird because I'm just like, God damn, does everybody in this fucking movie have a page boy haircut? Even Sophie gets one later once she lets Calcifer eat her
she gets
braid.
like a bob.
Yeah, it's that's more of a bob, but the rest of them are solid page boy haircuts.
Yeah, it's
like
so
even
weird.
Haku has it. I'm starting to think that he's just got a thing for that kind of haircut.
I think it's just a standard kind of haircut, maybe.
I suppose
for Miyazaki.
I guess the man's got an aesthetic. That's cool, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Oh, I loved the scene where they're at Solomon's and Howl comes in pretending to be the king, and then the actual king shows up. Is perhaps one of the best things ever.
It's excellent because it's such an obvious like Bush parallel where she's like, "You're so eloquent today, Your Majesty," and then he comes in like, "Rootin' tootin', we're gonna blow them to smithereens." Like
Solomon.
That's the best double you've made of me yet. We're gonna go to war again. Like it's just like, oh god. Like yeah. In case you forgot, this happened during 2004/2005. There you go. Now you know. Mm-hmm. Oh man, but
sorry, I just was skimming through the Wikipedia page and caught this line, which is perhaps my favorite thing ever. On the eve of the Iraq War, Miyazaki decided to make a film that he felt would be poorly received in the United States. That's cute.
Well, he was somewhat right, but it's more just because it was a very niche film, as opposed to it being explicitly anti-war. I don't know. And I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I kind of wanted to extrapolate on this a little bit earlier. But I thought in general, the voice cast for this film was very well done because like most of them are like fairly well-known English actors, but I just could not get past Billy Crystal as Calcifer. And I'm sorry, like I guess some people like him. I've never found him funny. And the only thing that really pissed me off was the fact that like he speaks with like a Brooklyn/New York accent, as opposed to everyone else who has like an English accent, because it's supposed to take place in like England or Wales, whatever. If you want to base it off the book.
Well, yeah, it's definitely inspired a lot by like
I thought
British
that he was,
and Welsh folklore type of stuff.
Because I just thought that Billy Crystal was trying to go after like a Miracle Max vibe from Princess Bride, like the only other fantasy film he's done like that. But it just it pissed me off because I was like, there are so many British actors that could have done that better, like British comedians. Like I may hate him, but Ricky Gervais could have done well. Peter Serafinowicz could have done it. Like fucking David Tennant. Like there's a lot of them that could have probably done a better job to me, and it's just. It just made me sad because out of all the characters, like I liked Calcifer's personality, but Billy Crystal just did nothing for me. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I had to say that because it's always bothered me, and I have never heard anyone mention it, or at least, or if they have, I haven't heard it in like a video review for this, and I'm just be like, why is no one mentioning it? He was so miscast.
Why is no one talking about this?
Why don't people
What is
agree
wrong with you people?
Me? Like, but. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I really do enjoy a lot of the things about this movie, even if the war subplot is kind of tacked on. But, like, that was just the one thing that I took out of it because I think the rest of it is just pitch perfect casting. Because, like, a young Josh Hutcherson is the voice of Markle, which I never would have anticipated.
Same.
Because he just sounds like a generic little kid. But, you know, good for him. I'm glad things went well post-Hunger Games for him. So.
Well, this was pre-Hunger Games.
No, I know. I'm saying post-Hunger Games, like now.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be doing fine.
Yeah. What about you? Are there any things that were like lingering for you that seemed kind of vague, or you're just like, I don't really know why they did that?
So the whole the one thing sort of for me, the end of this thing gets a little hinky. Specifically, the fact that like she goes into the past and sees him like essentially eat Calcifer as part of the deal, and then yells at him. which he seems to notice. That was sort of weird. I don't...
Yeah, where she's just like, Howl, I know how to help you. And he's just like, stranger danger. Like, he looks freaked out. He's like, who the hell is this weird woman yelling at me from this abyss?
Yeah, well, and that's... I saw a post ages ago, because she says, find me in the future, and then the first instance of her, the two of them meeting, he shows up and says, hey, darling, which I always just read as like, I'm gonna get you away from these two extremely rapey soldiers.
Yeah, it's true. Like, that was... It was still weird where it's just like he's just inserting himself into that whole situation where you're just like, Hal, you're really not helping, and plus you're touching her now, which is probably just making her even more on edge. So if she had mace, she'd just be like just doing like X's across their face. She's like, no means no, all of you. Why is this town so full of rapists?
Why is this town so rapey?
I should move.
I should move. I never should have hung out with Raymond Peter Barnes.
Rapey Barnes.
He's done it again.
Oh, that old rapey Barnes. That the constable throws down his hat and stomps on it. Curse you, rapey Barnes. Should we give some history behind that? Because I don't know if they're going to know what we're talking about. No context? Okay,
just,
fine.
Nope.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry,
cool.
guys. We've just exposed you to a terrible, awful joke that is one of our dumb inside jokes.
It's a very, very dumb inside joke. But
I regret nothing.
But it's still funny.
Yes.
To us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't have any other closing thoughts about this, really. Like, I do like this one, but it's probably not one that I watch a ton. Out of all the Miyazaki movies I watch, I'd probably say I would see Cat Returns and Spirited Away a little bit more frequently. But it's not by any means a bad movie. I just had kind of a bad experience seeing it in the theater when,
really?
Recently, I should say. So I'm not sure if, did you end up seeing it when G-Kids did the re-release thing, like maybe a little bit, not too long ago?
No.
But, oh, okay. Well, basically, I went with a friend of mine, and we got to the theater, and apparently, there was a fairly decent crowd of people in there, too, and it was at this theater that I tend to go to because it's got, like, the recliner seats, and, it's fun. But when we got there, for some reason, the screen was entirely blacked out, even though the sound was playing, and everyone was like, what the hell is going on? And this would be, like, during the previews and stuff, and it got to the point that there would be, like, we just started seeing people, like, leaving to be able to go up to the front desk and tell them what was going on, and then I think it was by the 15th or 20th person that they actually tried to come in and fix it. But the problem was the audio was still playing, so they had to basically restart it from like the first 3 minutes of the movie, and then they just replayed all the ads and stuff again, adding an additional 25 minutes onto the time for people sitting in the theater, which was just like, guys, maybe just fast forward through that shit. I don't know. Like, you're not capable of doing that? Like, people were getting pissed. They're just like, we don't know what's going on. Because I never had an experience like that before, but I just thought it was really weird. I don't know. I guess, like, theaters are not as well built as we thought they were. So, other than that, I don't know. Do you have any other closing thoughts for this one, Robbie?
I do want to say that I liked... So, right after the witch gets turned into, like, this just sort of, like, melted old woman.
Yeah.
She is very cute.
She's very cute. She's got, like, I don't know why her nose changes color, but it does. So there's that. She just becomes like, she's just like this little melty old candle woman, but like,
what a pretty fire.
Yeah, she becomes senile too. So like, it's actually in kind of a disturbing scene. Like, after Sophie and the Witch of the Waste make it to the top of the stairs to go into the palace, is that like the witch is like, she's taken into this room and she sits down, and then suddenly all these gigantic light bulbs or light machines or something are lit up, and then they just completely drain her of all of her power, and it's pretty horrifying because they wheel her into the other room when Sophie's talking to Madame Solomon, and I'm like, God damn. Like,
she's
I'm surprised she can even walk.
Yeah, I just love her as that for a little bit. I wish she stayed as that longer.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been
especially
nice.
Because her looking at the dog Heen. Good doggy.
Nice doggy.
She's like, yes, he is good.
He is a good dog. I do like his little mop of hair. I thought it was very sweet. Yeah, I agree. That was.
Oh, wait.
That was...
I do have one. Okay, so this is just a minor note, which is really just a Ghibli thing.
Go for
it. The bacon at the beginning of that movie looks like the best bacon never made.
I know, and you want to know why? Because the day after I saw this movie, I tried to duplicate that recipe, but I couldn't get thick enough bacon. And Kent's like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, I know, but it's not Ghibli good, because they have to be giant fucking thick slices of pork back, and I can't find it anywhere.
I can't find slices that thick, but there is a, like, actual local butcher close to my house that does bacon, so I need to go back.
You can ask. Actually, yeah, if you go over there and just ask him to make it like half an inch thick or something, you could probably do it, because it's like the best looking bacon ever. It's like there's this channel on YouTube called Feast of Fiction where they like to remake a whole lot of foods featured in like cartoons and movies and stuff or whatever. And this was one of them. So I tried doing it, because all you have to do is like, you get the bacon, and then you just cook the eggs directly next to it, and then you cover the skillet so that they all cook at the same time. And it was pretty neat. Like, I made it, and they turned out pretty well. But I just wanted thicker bacon, because I got really good bread for it too. Just like how they had bread and cheese and shit, and I made tea. I was like, I want this to be method, damn it, and I couldn't do it. But it's okay. It all worked out for the best. We still ate. So.
Yes.
I really want bacon and eggs now. This sucks.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Anything else, or
no? I think I'm good.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch, especially if you've never seen it before. Because I think that the characters are great. The environments are absolutely beautiful too, and the soundtrack is probably one of the better ones that Joe Hisaishi has made. I think personally, like it's pretty on par with Spirited Away, because like that melody, the merry-go-round of life, which is the theme that plays, is very, very memorable. So definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, I would say.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe watch the Japanese sub first, and then watch the English one.
That's up to you.
Nah, it's your preference, but I don't know. They're both good, so.
Not everyone hates Billy Crystal as much as Tracy does.
Apparently not. Apparently I'm just a big old hater in this episode. I shouldn't hate him because he did, like, comic relief or whatever back in the 80s, but you know what? I don't care. I just don't like him that much, that's all. Let's do our handles then, shall we?
Yep.
Okay. Robbie, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me at lobster_writer on Twitter. Tracy, where do they find you?
Thank you, Robbie. They can find me at TCTroush on both Instagram and Twitter. You can also find our show website, which is notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com, or you can look for us on YouTube, because we got a YouTube now, and I want to promo that shit, because I just put up a few more episodes, and it's I think it'll be good. We'll do it as like an experiment thing and just see if like people react to it, if they dig it. So. Yeah, but yeah, please find us on there too. I even had to make a new email for it, so we have one that actually matches our show branding, which is notjoannaeggs@gmail.com. So if you wanna contact us on there, go for it. I just mostly use it for YouTube. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's all I got.
Yep, that's it. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We appreciate it. And we'll be back at you with more hot and fresh, tasty takes fairly soon. Within, I don't know, probably late, I'm going to cut that bit out.
Late 2020.
Late 2020. It all ends now. The Not Joanna Eggs cage match.
Shit. I was not prepared for this. Spent all day being a tub.
This time it's free range.
What?
No? Nothing?
I don't know.
Free range eggs? No? You don't like it? Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk at you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of Not Joanna Eggs. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs, and the outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you use. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everyone. Thanks.
Sorry, I farted.
Howl's... I didn't hear.
Okay, damn it. I shouldn't have brought attention to it.
You always do that. Every time.
It felt impolite. Also, I just like how Lulu addresses that whenever, like, in that one video before, she's just like, I farted. Like, you didn't have to tell us that, but thank you.
I'm glad that you're honest.
Thank you.